and moderated by our good friend Susan from from WPP. So we've been very reflective all day about that transition, and all of us have been going through some sort of transition in our personal and professional lives through the pandemic. But to be a part of this company was really special for us to pivot so quickly. And was it perfect the first time? No, but we definitely learned so much along the way. And so, I want to take this opportunity to shout out a couple people in our team really quickly. Behind the scenes right now, I call him our Gelman, is Vishal. He joins us for every live cast. He's our executive producer in the physical world and our virtual producer in the virtual world. She's off today because it's her birthday, but Isabel is always behind the scenes as well, and she's the one that helps our speakers get up to speed on their tech tutorials and basically get ready for the big show. And then of course I can't leave Annie out. Annie oversees that team, and she put all the processes in place that help us be successful today. And really, the biggest kudos to our programming team. They're the ones that are having conversations all day long with our awesome marketing community and setting up great sessions for us all to enjoy. So kudos to them for all the hard work over the past 5 months. And kudos to you guys for tuning in today. We're really, really excited. So before we kick things off, I did want to also mention that we've been keeping track of our stats here, and it's exciting to share that we're coming up on our 100th live cast. That's going to be in October. Stay tuned. We're going to have some awesome, super high level special speakers for that day, and then we've had over 300 speakers. So we're celebrating, like I said, all day long. But thank you again for being here today. We have 3 spectacular sessions coming up. So before we kick things off, a couple of quick things. I'm assuming because you're tuning in right now, you got on the platform with no problems, but we definitely recommend they use Google Chrome extension. Just download it one time and you shouldn't have to download it again. So pro tip there. If you know someone who couldn't tune in today, you can go ahead and forward them your URL now. If they want to tune in later, if they have the time, they can always register anytime during the event. And this event is actually on YouTube and streaming there anytime. Just follow Brand Innovators. So last but not least, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Cisco Webex. They're powering today's program, so we're super grateful for them. And we want to play a really quick video from their team. So Vishal is going to tee that up right now. All right, thanks again, Cisco. We love working with you guys. All right, let's get started because we have a pretty full program. So I would love to welcome our first speaker of the day. His name is Kyle Graham. Kyle leads global consumer marketing and demand activation at Bose. In leading global brand sponsorships, Kyle leads all marketing efforts around esports and gaming, which he will share a little bit about today. Prior to Bose, Kyle worked for 10 years across a variety of agencies focusing on digital and social media. This session will be moderated by Ryan McDermott, the East Coast Sales Director of Barstool Sports. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us. It's great.
It's awesome. I know. Before we get started, any big, exciting Labor Day plans?
Nothing on my end. Just trying to keep the kids occupied.
Same. I've got 2 little girls, and Kyle has 4 kids, which is just crazy. I don't know how he's dealing with all that during COVID.
Well, awesome. Well, I personally hope that one of them runs in behind you guys, so that's my favorite thing. But I'll let you get started, and I'll pop back in at the end.
Yeah, they're in the basement right now.
Yeah. Be careful what you wish for.
All right. Well, I'm super excited to be hosting this virtual fireside chat with you, Kyle. For everybody on the chat, I'm Ryan. I'm the sales director at Barstool. For those of you who don't know Barstool, we're one of the fastest growing sports, entertainment, and lifestyle media brands in the world. And I'm just super excited to be having this chat with you, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for hosting. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah. So Kyle, you're responsible for all the emerging partnership at Bose, obviously with the focus in the esports space. You're strategizing on where the brand needs to be currently, but also looking ahead 2 to 3 years from now. So I thought that for today, we can't talk about the future of esports without diving into COVID and how that's fast-tracked its growth. So we'll get into that. And we'll also look into how Bose has been ahead of that curve, in your participation in this space for the last few years, and just look at how you've integrated into some really cool partnerships. And then the whole point of the chat is to look ahead. What does this industry look like, and how is Bose moving forward along with it? And then we'll take some Q&A from our virtual fans.
Sounds great.
So Kyle, you're a longtime gamer. We were talking yesterday about how you're a big FIFA Madden guy. It's probably a big reason why you're in the position you're in now. You've been with Bose for over 5 years now. So tell us about how you got into your current role running this global esports partnership team at Bose.
Sure. So originally I was actually brought on Bose on the media side. So, as was mentioned earlier, I started off on the agency side for about 10 years. Started in paid search, worked my way up. Social became a big thing about halfway into that, and lots of paid social, and really started building my foundation from a demand generation and a really conversion focus. And when I came to Bose, really my role was focused around helping us become more digital in nature. So if you think back 5-6 years ago, we were kind of just dabbling in the digital space. A lot of offline, a lot of print advertising, and my expertise kind of coming in digitally was to kind of help us take that leap forward from a video perspective, from just a digital media perspective in general. And really naturally, given how much we play in the partnership space with our NFL, with our Mercedes-AMG Petronas partnership, at the time US Ski and Snowboard, a lot of my work resonated around, how do we make the most of these partnerships from a digital perspective? Mm-hmm. And from a gaming and esports perspective, about 2.5 years ago, we had obviously noticed the trend that esports and gaming was just booming. Knew that it was a place where Bose wanted to play, but had to understand how we do it in an authentic way. Everything that we do resonates around our customers and around authentic integrations. So did a deep dive into if Bose were to enter the gaming space or to advertise in gaming, how would we do it in a way that would add value to customers and add value to fans? And that's really been the crux of my gaming work the past couple of years, is trying to focus in on, how can Bose add value in a way that's meaningful, as opposed to just going up and kind of throwing ad spots in front of those customers, those consumers.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been I've been a gamer back in the day, playing N64 with GoldenEye and Mario Kart in college, getting into Tiger Woods on Xbox. But I haven't played since college. So obviously, there's plenty of marketers who are probably on this call in the audience. They haven't picked up the sticks in a long time, but they keep hearing and reading about the rise of esports.
Yep.
You just talked about it. You looked at it a couple of years back. You saw the potential growth for this industry, but for people on the chat right now, why should they be paying attention to this, to the esports world?
It's a great question. I mean, I think, first and foremost, the stigma of gamers is changing. I mean, gone are the days, you think back to when, we were younger and it was this kind of like really ugly image of what someone would have when they, said they were a gamer. And now it's really just a lifestyle. Gamers are everywhere. They're playing on their mobile devices. They're playing across consoles, across PC. And it's a really cool, interesting way of life. And as technologies become more prevalent and we've kind of enhanced technology across multiple platforms, gaming's become easier. I was really actually blown away. I downloaded the latest Madden last weekend. I think we were talking about it yesterday, and I love that now you can, play Madden Mobile, and the rewards you get on your Madden mobile device, you can log on via your Xbox or PlayStation or console, and the rewards just transfer right over. So, the reason what I would say about, why brands should be involved is because, it's becoming just an everyday norm where you can reach people and reach customers any moment of the day because they're leaning into gaming to pass the time. And then you have with COVID, people are at home, they're investing more in it. People that may, have not played in 10, 15 years or, breaking out the old PlayStation or old Xbox, starting to invest more. They're probably going to be excited about the new console launches this fall. Because, especially with winter coming and things like that, there's not much else that they can do. So it's a great way to have fun, socialize, engage, and, just enjoy time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with COVID, it threw a wrench into everyone's marketing plans.
Yes.
People aren't going to live events. There were no esports live events. People aren't flying. They're not commuting in and out of cities. It just exploded. We saw that at Barstool alone. Within our game time content, it was up 120%. We had at one point Barstool Big Cat, part of my take. He was the #1 global streamer, and he had never been on Twitch before. So we're seeing this clear appetite for gaming content. And the companies that are able to survive and thrive are the ones that are able to pivot to those trends. So clearly you're doing that, but it would be great for everybody to hear, like, what are those, like, over these last 6 months, what measures and steps has Bo's done to be top of mind, to stay relevant, to be nimble?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we did a deep dive into the customer to understand, who are gamers, and we found very quickly that gamers are it's a very, very wide subset of people. So, we know that we can't be everything to everyone. So we've been spending a lot of time focusing and narrowing in on who exactly we want to target and who can we benefit from, or who can benefit from our products the most. And then how do we tailor our messaging to speak to those people? I think, there's all these different types of gamers. For us, it's about, those people who are a little bit younger, a little bit more tech savvy, people who are early adopters are really people that do well and that Bose does well focusing on. So trying to find those folks and gamers, understanding their habits, and understanding, people that want to make gaming a part of their lifestyle, maybe not necessarily the sole focus of what they do, but they're going to have different audiences throughout the day. Gaming might be one piece of it, but it might be working out, might be conference calls. And when someone has multiple uses for audio, Bose can really come in and play a big role in their life and really make working from home and just being at home a better experience for them.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised in doing a lot of just background research on all of this that obviously we all know the gaming space is super young, but a big percentage of the audience has a high household income over 75K. So, there is this battle for eyeballs. There's new people, young and old, who are, getting exposed to this content. And, you mentioned before, but, what is Bose doing, compared to your competitors in the space to stand out?
I think for us, it's all about how do we enter the space in a way that means something to gamers, right? I mean, we all can attest that gamers are traditionally very kind of finicky. They want brands to be involved, but for the right reasons. So we're honestly taking our time and being very cautious with how we approach this market. We don't want to just jump in and start throwing, banner after banner, video after video at them. So we're trying to find ways where we can really benefit, gamers and the content they're in. So, in the past, we've worked with the Adam Championship Series. We're partners with the Boston Uprising, and working with them, being able to understand their audience a little bit better and slowly kind of building towards the future. I can't talk a lot about what we're going to be doing, the remainder of this year, but what I can say is that, we're very excited about where we're headed, and everything is focused towards the customer. And I think that's where brands really need to focus to win in the space.
Yeah. And, you don't want to just, shove the latest noise canceling headphones in someone's face and say, hey, you got to buy this. So, what are some great storytelling tactics that you've employed with some of your partners, whether it's with Madden or with Boston Uprising? And I know you do it a lot with different NFL players, leveraging that NFL relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's about just working with talent, and whether it's a league, a team, or an individual celebrity or athlete, and figuring out how does Bose fit into their life on a daily basis? So like with the Uprising, we had some great content, obviously pre-COVID, around travel, where a lot of the players are from Korea or international, traveling internationally, making these massive long flights. And obviously it's a great place for, for them to be able to listen to music, gain comfort. We did like vlogs, for instance, where they wore actually these headphone 700s the entire time, and we're vlogging throughout the trip, leveraging this product. Some some folks are, whether it's NFL players or ski and snowboard athletes. We found that more and more athletes have their own content teams. So actually just providing them with briefs and kind of saying, these are the key product benefits. This is really what we want to nail home. How would you illustrate this? And they kind of come back with really, really innovative things. Whether it's YouTube talent or whether it's, Russell Wilson dropping a speaker that was just rated waterproof into a cup and playing the music when it's submerged in water. It's about finding content that will resonate with their fan base, above and beyond just kind of the standard online videos and banners and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's amazing when a brand can recognize, hey, I don't want to force feed talking points and messaging points into an athlete's day to day. Give them the bottom line. Hey, this is what we need to get across, but put it into your own, take your own spin on things. That's how we do things at Barstool with our talent and personality. It's like, give us those couple of bullet points and let us riff on it. And it's just going to be so much more beneficial for the brand and for the audience.
Yeah, we take very seriously, when we work with talent, before we sign them, when we're talking to them leading up to an agreement, we do all the appropriate vetting, and you have to remember that they're entertainers and you're working with them for a reason. So you need to let them do what they're good at. So for us, like a lot of the work is kind of pre-signing, where we'll make sure their brand's safe, make sure the content they're creating is what we're looking for. And then, we can feel more comfortable when the time comes to say, hey, here's a brief. What do you think? And they'll come back with boards and kind of we'll build the content out that way. But we've just found that if you do that homework up front, it makes it a lot easier as you actually go to activate.
Sure. So, from a product standpoint, like the alignment between gaming, streaming, and Bose, it's a no-brainer. You're providing premium noise canceling headphones while they're locked into their streams. What are some other ways that you're providing value to gamers and to streamers beyond obviously just the product itself?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I talked about before about what people think gamers are versus what they actually are. So in our research recently, we found that gamers actually over-index with like workout headphones, things like having speakers in general, whether it's sound bars or at-home speakers, they work really well for gamers, as is just their need for new tech. So it's really about just technology in general. Our products serve a lot of purposes for them, and we just try to be top of mind when they're ready to search or buy.
Yeah, I can't wait to get my new pair of wireless headphones that you'll send me after this call. So we're seeing a lot of major companies get involved in esports. Obviously these big blue chip brands are getting in, sponsoring these different leagues and teams. You got Amazon that owns Twitch. It's amazing that like esport athletes are considered athletes, like the esport athlete. Reed Hastings, Netflix, he said he's more scared of Fortnite than he is of Disney. So everyone's competing for eyeballs. Gaming is competing against the streaming companies. And your expert, point of view, what does the next 2 to 3 years look like in this space? Who do you expect to rise? Who's going to jump in the fray?
It's really interesting. I think, gaming is really tricky because things change so fast. And, I'll give you a great example. I mean, I think if you asked 2.5 weeks ago, most people, if they'd heard of the game Fall Guys, people had no idea. And now all of a sudden it's the most watched game on Twitch.
Yeah, that's all we're streaming right now
it is a fun game if you haven't played it yet. But I mean, for me, it's going to be the brands that can move quickly and can change and can be nimble, but also staying true to who their brand is. I'm a big believer that, I feel like the year of mobile has been the past 5 years, but in terms of gaming, I think mobile is going to be more and more important. You mentioned Fortnite, like I'm still blown away when I see someone playing Fortnite on an iPad and how quick they're able to move their hands and act, play that game. on a mobile device essentially. But I think you'll start to see less of like the Candy Crush style games, and more of. I mean, I think there's obviously still gonna have a place, but I think you're gonna start to see more of like your traditional, like the Fortnite style games coming onto mobile devices, and you'll see people playing there. And it'll be really interesting to see how the publishers and the titles actually make it more immersive so people can play all around. So like as I mentioned before with Madden, like that's a great feature. You can play in the mobile and come and go back to your Xbox or PlayStation and kind of carry over. So I think that type of stuff is going to be really interesting. And brands, and I guess I can include Bose in that sense too, where you're able to you have products that can fit all the different needs. So someone can hypothetically be on a train commuting home, playing on their phone, seamlessly walk into the house, and then switch to playing Xbox if they want to, and you have one audio experience or one gaming experience. I think is a real interesting place where brands can win.
Yeah, and I think for everybody who's watching right now, I think you said it just before, like the brands that are going to win are the ones that are most nimble and they can act as fast as possible. That's a Barstool mantra. Any other advice you have for brands who haven't taken that jump yet into the esports space?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, while esports and gaming is booming, it's important to take a step back and make sure you're very purposeful with what you're doing. So don't just jump right into it. Do the proper research, understand who your target audience is, who you want to speak to, and then from there, how you're going to speak to them. We know through our research that a significant portion of gamers use ad blockers, for instance. So traditional advertising, doesn't necessarily work on them, and that's both scary and exciting, right? It's things that we're really good at, but also it's a whole new set of people we're not talking to. So when you do the research, think about how do you want to show up as a brand, how do you want to show up in a meaningful way, and how do you want to speak to these consumers differently than maybe who you're speaking to traditionally.
Gotcha. And obviously, you have a bunch of products that are rolling out. Can't talk about them. I'm sure they're going to be amazing. But looking back at some of your most recent partnerships, what are some of the either like for you personally that some of like the coolest ones that you've been a part of, or partnerships you're most proud of? I saw something you guys did with Star Wars last year. It looked pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I'm a huge fan of that. I'm a huge music fan. And in particular, I'm a huge country music fan. I'd say, we've done a lot of work in music in general. But in particular, I think back to actually when I first started at Bose, we partnered with Sam Hunt, and we're actually able to do with him in celebration of his album release a year after. We actually worked with him to shut down Street in Nashville, and he went on a radio show and said, "Hey, I'm doing a free concert," and we had 10,000 people show up live, and
That's awesome.
it was pretty cool from going, 6 a.m. that morning, you're getting up ready to go. And you're like, I don't know how this is going to go. And then all of a sudden it's 9 p.m. at night and you see this mass amounts of people there. And, it was pretty special moment for me just because I'm such a huge music fan. And it was cool to be able to deliver that to Bose fans and the artist fans as well.
It's awesome. I'm a big Sam Hunt fan. Cool. So we've got some questions from the audience that I'll throw out to you. Some that we've talked about, but let me just kind of weed through these.
Sure.
So, all right, what are some of the upcoming trends in esports to look out for?
So I would definitely say mobile. I also think, looking at, the new consoles that are coming out and what we know of them, I think cloud-based gaming is going to be really important too. So you look at, if you think back to when we were younger, Ryan, you had, first the cartridges, then you had the CDs, and I remember you'd save 3 or 4 games you didn't play anymore, and you'd go back into a store and trade it in, and you'd get a new game for that. I think those days are pretty much past us. I think most gamers now are downloading games, playing via the cloud. They'll swap games in and out. If you're playing on like a Switch, for instance, and only has X amount of memory. But I think what will be interesting is like if there, could there be potential like a Netflix style company where you're able to almost like get these cloud-based games, rent them, play them, test them, as opposed to just having to constantly buy the games. That could be really interesting. But I do think mobile and cloud is definitely where we're headed. As phones interesting get bigger with the bigger screens, I think that will only play even more to it.
Yeah. I and kind of just doing that research before, the fact that Netflix is really seeing that that gaming is their main competitor. Be interesting to see how they kind of enter the space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the thirst and desire for content from gamers is definitely there. I mean, you look at some of the major esport players now. I mean, they'll release new characters or champions in their game, and they'll have like a 20-minute documentary on that individual character, with who they came from, what their backstory was, and it's just the content's incredible. It's incredible content. So it'll definitely be interesting to see, as more and more of those entertainment brands come into play, how that comes in, and what the customer experience is.
Yeah. Let me just jump in real quick. So,
Of course.
all right, another question from the audience here. So, how do you see your audience demographic expanding to be more inclusive as the industry grows and evolves?
I mean, that's a great question. I think for us, it's just thinking about all the different ways that our audience demographic can benefit from a Bose product. If you look at a lot of gaming peripherals now, whether it's audio devices or keyboards and mouse, it's really, those products stay basically at their desk or at their setup, wherever it is in the house. And, naturally gaming is going to be more inclusive because, for us, it's becoming more of a lifestyle. So, we're able to kind of help and drive benefit in more aspects of their life than just, while they're gaming. And when they do that, when they're using audio products outside of gaming, it just naturally opens up who we're speaking to. And we can go from there. But I will say that, there are lots of different segments of gamers. So, while we're very focused at the moment, I think, as this question kind of alludes to, we're going to have to widen it up as we become more endemic to the space.
Yeah. And I think just naturally your products they're more premium, just more expensive. And even though there is a large section of the gaming audience that does make a lot of money, you do have a lot of teenagers and young kids who are streaming. You're never going to sacrifice quality to go for a cheaper product. But I know myself, I've been a Bose guy my entire life because that's what my dad used, and if it was a little bit more, a little more, I don't want to say cheaper because that's not the right word to use here, a little more cost efficient for a young man to do it. Are there ways that you've been partnering with some of the leagues or teams or your influencers to give deals to teenagers and young kids? Something to look at, in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's definitely something for us to explore. I mean, we don't traditionally do a ton of that. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean to say that we're wrong or right for doing it that way, but it's something I honestly don't have a ton to speak to on, unfortunately.
Yeah. Cool. So with everybody kind of jumping into the fray now, over the last couple of months, casual gaming is making up the largest piece of that industry.
Yep.
How do you incorporate that into your gaming strategy? So everybody who's new, they may not have been exposed to those before. How are you targeting them?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm being a little bit redundant here, but it really comes down to the target audience and kind of what's most beneficial to them, right? So not every gamer is the same. So, some people might find in-ear wireless headphones most relevant. Some people might find over-ear. Some people might find sound bars. It's about understanding what their tendencies are and speak to them in a way that's relevant for them. So that way, we have multiple products in our portfolio. We're able to speak to, in different benefits. And it's about, okay, yes, they're a gamer, but what else is important to them throughout their day, and then narrowing in the right product for them, as opposed to just saying, our most important product is X. We're just going to keep hammering home this product. It may or may not be relevant for you, but we're just going to keep, serving you ads with that product. It's really important to kind of think about what product fits their lifestyle best, and then focus there.
Gotcha. And then we've got a crazy back half of the year. No one knows, whether the second wave of COVID is going to be coming, in October or November. But what steps have you guys been taking to prep for the rest of 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, we have some exciting stuff in the works, in the plans. We do a lot of work in the back half of the year, calendar year. So just excited to get our plans underway, make the media and partnership announcements we're going to be doing, and go from there. It's going to be an exciting year for us, and yeah, just excited to get it going.
That's great. That's great. All right, let's see if we've got any more questions from the audience here. One sec. All right, so how are you managing and navigating your business, your customer strategies, and employee engagement, particularly over these past few months?
That's a lot. That's a big question. Lots to unpack there. I think Bose is obviously a fairly large company, and in terms of managing, navigating the business, it's really just about how do we line up our activations with our corporate kind of strategies and what's most important to us, and how are we positioning our both media and partnerships in a way that will help us achieve our overall goals. And for us, I mean, everything you say, it says customer strategies, and everything is centered around the customer. We try to really think of ways, again, that just help benefit the customer in multiple ways, and be authentic to who they are. And really over the past few months, it's all about planning. I mean, we, like I said, our back half of the year from the calendar perspective is really important. So we do all of our planning, in call late spring to early summer. And then now it's really about getting ready to activate, and we don't just set it and forget it. So once we're live, we're optimizing, we're listening to the customer, we're doing social listening, et cetera, to make sure that we are, poised in being nimble and quick, and hopefully taking advantage of the most, the busiest time of year in terms of shopping.
Yeah, and we saw it obviously during COVID that your media has to change with the times. We really weren't a big player on the Twitch scene, even on TikTok. And then obviously that exploded during COVID. So, for you, how did that media mix change over these last few months?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us, obviously live events and things of that nature have taken a little bit of a backseat, but we've done things to try and bring live events to customers and to fans while they're at home. So like one great example, we worked in a program over this summer called Music Gives Back, where we actually worked with different musicians to essentially have them do live music sessions and live music lessons on Bo's Instagram. And in exchange, we made a charitable donation in their name to a charity of their choice. So we had folks like Pitbull. One of my personal favorites coming up in the 90s was Travis Barker. He did a live drum session to see, Travis Barker go all the way back to like Paradiddles, and show how he warms up for a show is pretty cool. So, we did a little bit more in the live space. I mean, social commerce is really important for us as well. So our social team does a great job staying on top of trends, trying to make use of the latest and greatest features from all the different platforms, and really figuring out how we can leverage our talent to drive more on social has been a big focus. But as I mentioned, our biggest part of the year is the back half. So for us, we planned accordingly for COVID, but we didn't have to really change much in real time, just because, like I said, most of what we do is the back half. So it was more about changing how we plan than opposed to actually changing things in the moment.
Yeah, and with the holidays coming up and the new products that you'll be rolling out, I'm sure it's just going to be a crazy few months for you.
Yeah.
Got another question from the crowd. So, what are your 2021 predictions for esports? I think we've talked about mobile at length here, but anything else? I always think about, for me, what I've noticed is that there's so many new teams that have launched over the last year or so, whether it's with 100 Thieves, with FaZe Clan. I expect that to be more of a trend in 2021. Like we've said, like these gamers, they're more lifestyle. Just like Barstool, we're more lifestyle company. They're getting out of their basements. They're putting out new content. They're pushing it on all their different platforms.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that is a big trend that I'll be seeing. But anything else you see on your side?
No, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, I think, I don't know if you saw like Bronny James is now part of FaZe Clan. I think you'll to see younger celebrities focus more on gaming. I also think, video on demand and I mean, VOD gaming is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger as we're home more and as people are, have more time to consume content. They're going to look to multiple platforms. So whether it's a YouTube or a Twitch to watch, I think just those numbers are going to just continue to rise at a significant level. I could also see, it'll be interesting to see what Facebook Gaming does in the next 6 to 12 months, having made a big acquisition recently as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think just the viewership numbers are going to continue to rise significantly. And then also, obviously, with the release of the new consoles, both Xbox and PlayStation, it'll be really interesting to see how those new features come into play and how people are taking advantage of them. And the new games, the new Halo's coming out. And other games like that to see if any of those pop and kind of change consumer habits on like a Twitch or what have you.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because we see it on our side, just how much video on demand there is after the live streams. It's actually more people are watching replays versus the live experience. So pretty amazing. All right, so we got another question from the crowd. This is more of a personal one for you. So, how has your leadership style changed over these last few months? Have you developed more personal relationships with your colleagues and partners, or has Zoom meetings really gotten to you?
No, I mean I think it's been good. I mean, I've never had the opportunity to work from home as much as I have now, and in terms of my colleagues and things of that nature, I think there's a lot more. What's the word? I think we're a lot more patient now, which is awesome. Dealing with people at Bose have been really patient with people, having to deal with family matters and their kids and school from home and, even just simple things like going on for walks during the afternoon just to kind of like get out of the house and kind of deal and the more mental health aspect of things. So I'd say like in terms of my personal leadership style, I've definitely become more patient, which, it's something I'm relatively proud of. I in general, I grew up in the generation where it's like instant gratification. You want to go. So I think COVID's definitely led to me taking a step back personally and kind of thinking about what's important and how to get work done in an efficient way while also managing everything else that life has to throw at you.
Yeah, and I think those first like 2 to 3 months of COVID, like everyone was like, all right, I've got to be on my laptop nonstop every second of the day. And then we got till May and it was like, whoa, I haven't taken like a day off in months. So we made it a big concerted effort on our side to make sure everyone's taking those mental health days.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely has made it a lot easier. I mean, as I'm sure everyone on this call can attest. I mean, COVID has not necessarily been the easiest thing to deal with for anybody, and it was a lot of change all at once, and a lot of people to worry about and think about, and it's been just in general, it's been an interesting experience, and I'm very thankful to work for a company that's been so flexible and been able to kind of really put their employees first, and allow us to do things like take those mental days, mental hours that you need to get to get your work done afterwards.
Yeah, especially with the kids that we have, like we need those days.
Yes.
Got a great question from the crowd. All right, so how should older, more traditional brands gracefully enter the newer technology spaces like esports?
That's another good question. I think it's all about what does your brand do and how can you benefit and how can gamers benefit from it, or from an esports perspective, or if it's it could be surfing, it could be soccer, whatever sport it is. It's like, what are you bringing to that space that makes a difference? So I like to use our NFL's partnership as an example, where with the coach's headset, we're involved in every single play, and the coaches can hear clearly, they can speak clearly. And from snap one of the preseason, which isn't happening this year, all the way through to the Super Bowl, and it helps elevate the game, and we're able to clearly articulate that, and I think whenever, doesn't matter if it's a new brand or an older brand, if you can go in and kind of show fans why you're in the space and what difference you're making, it just bodes well, and you'll see a lot of success that way.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a product that you're introducing to the crowds. You
Correct.
see it these last few months where there's these $1 million tournaments going on. If you're able to help sponsor those and bring that content to the fans, then it's only going to make you look even better.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you look at their tournaments that just have $2 million cash prizes. When if you go back 10 years, I mean, those esports tournaments were almost, I think if you make any money, you're come out on the good side. So I mean,
you had that 16-year-old kid who won $3 million playing Fortnite.
Yeah,
the money's there.
Oh yeah, exactly right.
Okay, I've got another question from the crowd. So, how do you engage audiences? Is the goal to take away from traditional sports and entertainment consumption?
No, I mean, I would say it's not the goal. I mean, our goal is to just deliver content or deliver, engaging content where customers are. I mean, we're not dictating or telling the customers where they should be, but it's our job to understand what the trends are, where, what they find interesting, and then react accordingly. So, I certainly don't think traditional sports are going away anytime soon. I think they have a specific demographic. I think they're obviously looking to expand who they're speaking to, just like any brand is. But yeah, I mean, in terms of how do you engage with the audiences, it's about understanding, who they are and what they want to consume and what they want to hear from a brand. And taking the time to learn that.
Yeah, I think for you, you want to be in the traditional TV broadcast space. What you've been doing in the NFL is great, but you have to find other audiences wherever they are. You can't just only be on TV. So you've got to be in the esports space. That's where you need to be. Yep,
exactly right. And it's not really about traditional sports, not traditional sports, celebrity. It's just about our customer and who we're looking to reach. Who we're looking to focus on, and then where they are, wherever they are, that's our job to engage them.
Great. Got another one from the crowd. So, how can marketing and technology leaders structure their teams and recruit highly coveted talent for a new era that demands an increasing array of skill sets?
That's a lot to unpack there as well. Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of structuring a team, I think, for me, it's just about like really leveraging the people you work with, and helping them achieve what they want to achieve. So if they're good at a certain thing, or they really enjoy working on certain things, you really got to focus in and kind of let them do what they do. Like, as I mentioned before, with streamers, with celebrities, with influencers, they're entertainers. So you let them entertain. And it's like when you hire certain people, or if you're looking for a certain skill set, you should let them flourish. It doesn't really matter if the role is a specific thing. For me, it's about like, okay, if this person has a specific skill set, let them make the most of it and continue to grow, and then understand what they want to do in the future, right? So, and if there's opportunities for them to grow that skill set, help them do that as well. It's either, as the question alludes to, there's definitely a lot of demand for different skill sets and constantly learning. So, again, I guess another thing, a piece of advice would be to find people that are constantly interested in learning and, always searching on information, always want to be the latest and greatest trends, because those folks are always going to be the ones to want to learn new skill sets and want to grow what they're doing, expand what they're doing, which only helps the team.
Yeah, and at Barstool, we want people who, it doesn't matter where you went to school, as long as you have good ideas, you have the chops to make it here, then that's what we're looking for. So that's great that you guys are kind of in the same boat. Do you have any advice for young marketers who are looking to break into esports?
I would just say, look for opportunities where you can do as much as possible. I started my career at a very small agency. There were less than 50 people. And I'm very grateful for that, because I was able to do pretty much everything from a digital perspective. And I had to learn, not on my own necessarily, but I had to kind of be very, I guess, inquisitive and kind of try to uncover how to do certain things. Back then, things, like media mix modeling, or even just like launching a search platform that was, so it's an automated search platform, that there wasn't no book on that. So finding a place where you can do lots of different things and get lots of different experiences is something I've always valued, and I would highly recommend that. So that way, if you're not exactly sure what you want to do, but you like esports or you like football or whatever it is, you can get a wide swath of experiences and then kind of narrow down your career from there. But it all starts with just getting as much experience as you can.
Great. Awesome. Well, Kyle, this was great. I'm going to hand it over back to Lauren so that we can make a move to the next panel. But really appreciate the time.
Yeah.
It's been great getting to know you over the last week or so.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Ryan.
Of course.
We appreciate it. Well, Kyle, I think we'll be seeing you somewhat soon in the next couple of weeks.
I think so. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Hey, Ryan, come back soon.
Will do. Thanks, Lauren.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, big thanks to Kyle and Ryan for joining us today and kicking things off. So we'll move things on to our next session, which we're very excited to have Valerie Zapata join us. Val is the Director of Subscriber Partnerships and Growth at Hulu, where she's responsible for driving growth, pricing, promotions, and partnership strategy. The session is going to be moderated by Brian Weiser. Brian is the Global President, Business Intelligence at Group M, WPP's media investment group. He's leading Group M's he's leading Group M's thought leadership practice to ensure that WPP's clients receive actionable marketplace intelligence on markets, audiences, partners, platforms, and supply and demand dynamics. Welcome to the stage, Brian and Val.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Hey, yeah, love it. Well, you guys have a great conversation. I'll pop in towards the end when you guys wrap.
Great. Well, thanks so much. And thanks everyone for joining in. Looking forward to having this conversation. Well, I guess maybe we'll start, Val. We already know a little bit about me. How about you? Can you tell us about yourself and what you do over at Hulu?
Sure thing. So like Lauren mentioned, I am the Director of Subscriber Growth and Partnerships at Hulu, which really means I lead a team that's responsible for all of the initiatives that really drive step change growth for our business. So we're talking less about, shifting $1 million of media budget from channel A to channel B to get a few thousand more subscribers. We're talking about the initiatives that are going to bring in hundreds of thousands, millions of subscribers at a time. And so this really falls into a few different categories. It's things like pricing and packaging and promotional offers. It's things like our add-ons business. Hulu actually sells add-ons like HBO Max and Showtime and Stars. So my team is responsible for that. It's all of our distribution partnerships, whether that's with a Spotify or a Verizon, as you might have recently seen in the news, or our device partners. And then last but not least, that also includes the Disney bundle, which checks a few of those boxes. It's kind of a discount, it's kind of an add-on, it's kind of a distribution partner. So really these sort of big step change levers that are bringing Hulu subscriber growth to the next level.
Right. Well, and I mean, if you were to think about the core products, though, just for those unfamiliar, I think we all know what Hulu is conceptually, but those not actually using it, is it really the SVOD service and the Hulu Live service? They're really the products. Is that a fair way to characterize it?
It is, but then you're still neglecting a lot of my children, if you put it that way. So I'd say at the simplest level, there are a few base plans that Hulu has. There's a SVOD service, and we have both an ad-supported version and an ad-free version. And then there's the live service, which includes the SVOD service, but then you also get live linear channels on top of it. I would highlight the Disney bundle, which is obviously a new product that came out with the launch of Disney Plus last year, where you can get Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN Plus, all for $12.99, which is becoming an increasingly important sort of product in our portfolio of services that we offer. As you can imagine, it has a huge appeal to customers and drives a lot of growth for us. And then there are sort of that secondary tier of products it's the collection of the add-on services that we have available. So. Yes.
How would you prioritize growth when you think about it? I mean, at a Hulu-wide level, between bringing a new subscriber in to one of the sort of the gateway products, let's say, versus growth of through an add-on product. And then, again, as a former cable analyst many years ago, I'm always thinking about churn and how do you prioritize investments against things that reduce churn?
Yeah. I'm going to answer that question in two ways. So first, thinking about it across the subscriber life cycle, we think holistically about, net subs at the end of the day. So there are a lot of different levers that contribute to that. There's signups, there's the net new acquisition that's coming in. There's convert to pay is a metric we think about a lot, of how many of our subscribers are converting from sort of that free trial period where they get to try out the service in the beginning to becoming a full price subscriber. There's their engagement, how many hours are they watching on the service, how frequently are they watching, basically indicators of how healthy they are as a subscriber overall, and that ultimately then culminates into churn and retention and how long are they staying on the service. So our ultimate goal is informed by all of those different levers. We're trying to bring in as many new subscribers as possible and then keep them happy and healthy on the service for as long as possible. So we try to maximize all of them, but it's the end result that really matters at the end of the day. The second part of your question, I sort of hear that as, is there a preference between one product in the portfolio versus the other? And the short answer is there really isn't. One of Hulu's real sort of differentiators from the competition, and one of our competitive advantages, is that we do have this sort of broad and unique portfolio of products out there that can provide consumers with what they want in different ways. We have a competitive set that's SVOD only. We have a competitive set that's a virtual MVPD only, whereas we're able to straddle both. And then you have all of these really unique, products like the Disney bundle, like the add-ons on top of your SVOD. We're really just trying to get each subscriber into the right service at the right time, at the right place. And so it's not necessarily, driving subscribers into one over the other, but really making sure that their personal and individual needs are met best.
Right. Well, and I guess you've also got an interesting difference, if you will, between a lot of other players in the industry, in that one of your products is partially commoditized in the sense of just basic access to someone else's channels. So hit on that in a second. And then you've got original programming and content that if you want the content, you have to get it from Hulu. And the content is arguably the brand. How do you balance the brand, which I assume would contribute to not just the experience, but it's one of the reasons why someone would choose, say, the Hulu Live product over another vMVPD? And then how do you balance performance? Like, what's the trade-off that you make internally in terms of like why one thing is more important than the other? How do they relate to each other?
It's all really interrelated. We think, when you think about the Hulu brand, it's not just the marketing, right? Like you're sort of touching on this. The content itself contributes to the brand. The product experience really contributes to the brand. And so it all ties into each other. When we think about it from a marketing perspective, it has to be a balance, because we're thinking about driving awareness and intent all the way through to sign up. So you have to be thinking about the brand message and the content awareness to make sure that the original titles that we have are, those have the awareness and exposure that we need them to then motivate people to come in and sign up for the service. But then it doesn't end there, sort of back to that full life cycle perspective. One of the pros and cons of having a subscription business is, as a marketer, your job is never done. So even once you get them in the door, you are constantly trying to figure out how can we reinforce the value of the brand, the content, and the experience. So both through in product levers, but then also through marketing channels, making sure that you're, in essence, reselling that subscriber over and over again, and reiterating the value that they're getting out of their experience.
Well, is there an element of come for the content, stay for the experience? In other words, and again, I'm thinking about it through the lens of like how companies have to allocate resources across different functions. Theoretically, you can invest in a better user interface, a better predictability of what might be interesting, or you can invest in some other tactic that would cause someone to not turn away. I mean, is experience part of marketing agreement at all, or is it really something separate?
I don't know if you can make a clear distinction. I think they go very hand in hand. At Hulu, actually, just recently, we rolled out a new UI, which is focused specifically on that. So not just improving the user experience and making it easier to use, but one of the main goals of that redesign was to make it easier for users to find the content that they're trying to find. Because if you think about the depth and breadth of our content portfolio, we are the largest streaming TV service out there, just in terms of the number of titles and number of episodes that we have. But it's such a deep library that sometimes it's hard to help our users find everything that we have available. So it could be, sort of the big name titles, whether it's Handmaid's Tale or Little Fires Everywhere, that are bringing people into the service. But we need to make sure that the experience and the UI is surfacing, maybe some of the more library or catalog content that has hours and hours and hours of content for you to binge to keep you coming back for more and keep you highly engaged. So it goes very much hand in hand. A lot of the work that we do on the marketing side is thinking about what that in-product experience looks like, and then working with our partners over there to keep the subscriber satisfied.
Right. Well, when it comes to some of your children, I mean, how does marketing of those products tie to consumer usage? So, like, for example, I'm very happy viewer of Brownie, wonderful series. Because I've watched that, and my kids watch, I don't know, the most recent season of The Simpsons. Does that all of a sudden make me likely to be targeted for some add-on, which I may or may not have through another service? Or how does that data get used in terms of informing how you would market a product to a user?
It does, absolutely. So within Hulu, we have a ton of data around what our subscribers watch, what they engage with, and we use that to inform, different segmentations and categorization of folks. That gets used in a lot of different ways. It's not just for upsell. We are not constantly trying to add more to your basket. The primary objective is really to just make sure that we're delivering on that value proposition that you've already found. I will say the Disney bundle brings sort of an interesting interaction into play, or the example that you mentioned, where knowing what a subscriber or obviously in this case it could be a family. It's not just about what your engagement and your behavior looks like on Hulu, but what does that potentially look like across some of our sister services as well. And that's where, the value proposition of the three combined becomes really compelling, because it's not just about meeting an individual's needs, but it could be, meeting the needs of an entire household.
Yeah. Well, how do you deal with the challenge of dark data? Is that the right word? I am a subscriber to Disney Plus, completely independently of my subscription to Hulu. I know I could save money if I combined them, and yet I haven't gotten around to it. And so it must be hard to identify a lot of information that you want to know about your existing subscribers. Like, how do you enrich your data? Have you found any best practices to go deeper into your consumers?
Yeah, I mean, we work really closely with our Disney Plus counterparts and ESPN Plus counterparts as much as we can. Your sort of wish list of, don't you wish you had all this data? I wish I had viewership data across every single streaming service for each of my subscribers. That would be super actionable and powerful. But we do the best with what we have. We have a ton of data internally. We work very closely with ESPN Plus and Disney Plus to understand, their strategies and segmentations as well. Supplement with third-party data wherever it makes sense. We have a really, strong research team to help us understand the addressable market that exists out there. And really using all of those different data points to triangulate into what we can. And then we also do a lot with lookalike audiences. So using what we do know internally, and then using that to inform our strategy with prospects as much as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so can you talk a bit about partnerships? So whether it's mobile carriers or retailers or other parties, I mean, how do you think about what take a step back. I remember speaking as an analyst at I think it was 2-3 years ago at a Procter & Gamble event. I think it was Michael Paul from Disney Plus was there speaking. I was like, why is the Disney Plus guy speaking at a Procter & Gamble event? And I figured it out. And so the idea that there are partnerships to be had to drive broader business relationships, I think is really quite fascinating. But how do you think about those relationships in terms of, like, what do you look for in terms of partners that can help, build the overall business, build subscriber numbers?
Yeah, for sure. At the simplest level, to me, there's sort of three objectives that we're trying to solve for with these types of partnerships. It's building greater awareness and exposure of the brand, which we're kind of at this stage now where we have a lot of awareness, but there's always opportunity to find a partner who can help augment that in the right places. The second one is value enhancement to our subscribers. So to me, like the ultimate strategic partner isn't just serving a marketing or business purpose, but you are actually creating more value for your consumer in the sense that, like, the sum of the two products or services is greater than just the sum of the parts, right? By bringing the two pieces together, you are creating incrementally more value for your joint subscribers. And then last but not least is, access to audiences that you might not otherwise have access to. So for example, like Hulu has a strategic partnership with Spotify where we participate in a university student bundle, where for the price of Spotify student premium, so the ad-free product, you also get Hulu included with that. And so that's a great channel and lever for us to get better access to a market where historically we've been underpenetrated. And so we essentially get to, leverage the existing awareness and establishment that they have among that student audience and build upon it for Hulu.
Interesting. And do you tend to look at these sorts of relationships through a shorter term lens, like what does this do for you now versus what does this do for your longer term brand building efforts? Or is it, I'm always curious about that trade-off.
I'd say it tends to be the longer term. Primarily, just thinking operationally, it takes a lot of time to stand these things up. Even just the process of, building the relationship and trying to figure out what's the right path forward for both businesses. But then, usually there's a technical integration side to it as well. So there's a lot of resource investment into standing up these types of partnerships. So it has to, have a long-term payoff and value that makes sense for the business in the long run.
I wonder if there's I think when Amazon started offering Prime Video, I know it was a bit of a head scratcher to me initially, whenever it was 10 years ago, whenever they started it, and then it's like, oh, got it, now it makes sense. Are there, and I'm sure some of us are looking at Walmart and TikTok and initially going, huh? And then, oh, okay, you can squint, you can see the logic. Internally, we recognize that the practitioners actually see deep logic to these relationships that the outside can't always see. Are there any particularly standout, non-obvious kind of partnerships at a category level that you think would be sort of a dream category to be partnered with that maybe wouldn't make sense to an outsider?
Oh gosh, I mean, I'll throw this out there. This is and this is a real long shot, right? To your question about the long-term horizon. One of the ideas we talk about is the auto industry, right? Oh. And if you think about it now, like maybe that doesn't make that much sense. Obviously a Sirius XM, and it makes sense for them to bundle with auto manufacturers, but Hulu doesn't feel quite intuitive yet. 5 to 10 years from now, depending on where the technology is, it might make a lot more sense.
I hear.
So that's one of the things that I internally we love to play around with.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I'm thinking self-driving cars or even just backseat audio. So yeah, no, that or backseat video rather. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye out for some non-conventional potentially.
Yeah, but don't do it until self-driving is firmly established.
No,
No,
that's
you
really
like
true.
Romney, but we got to be safe on the roads.
Well, when it comes to one of the I think key drivers that I think has held up the traditional pay TV ecosystem has been local TV channels and the availability of local channels, and it's obviously been something that's been gradually rolling out for the MVPDs that they've been licensing retrans deals with local stations. How important is that for you? I mean, I think you have access to some local TV in many markets. Is that important? Is it an increment? I mean, is someone who wants to subscribe to a VMVPD someone who cares about local TV at all?
Yeah, it's tough. So that's not really my area of focus day to day, but I can tell you that with virtual MVPDs overall, it's tough to make the numbers work. I think you probably know this based off of your history. But the license fees are not cheap, and they tend to go up year over year. So finding a way to create a product that works both for the business and the consumer is sort of a constant struggle that we have. And there are oftentimes trade-offs that we have to make. And so I think in an ideal world, we would love to have, every single local affiliate, every single local channel that our subscribers cared about. But oftentimes we do have to think about which ones matter most. And which ones will bring the most value to the largest number of subscribers for our business.
Well, I guess it goes back to I recognize it's organized differently, but I guess it's kind of like a different kind of add-on. Like I could add on HBO, or I could add on my local affiliate, broadcast affiliates. It's from my perspective, maybe it's the same thing, but maybe not, because a person who consumes local TV news and maybe local or the national broadcast networks live is a different person than someone who wants premium TV.
No, I mean, that's fair, right? There are a couple different ways you could package it. You could either structure it in that sense where it's an add-on. Well, I should caveat before I say that sometimes there are restrictions around exactly how you can package it. So assuming that we could do what we wanted to, you could think about it as, is it an add-on that each subscriber gets to make the choice on, do they want to add this or not, or do you just sort of bundle it in and give it to everybody? I think with that first scenario, per your suggestion, it ends up being pretty costly if you're looking at it just for that local market. So it's an interesting suggestion. I think it again just sort of comes down to what really is the value that it provides to each subscriber, and then what is their willingness to pay for it in return, and can that value equation actually hold?
Right. So now when it comes to marketing, whether it's the add-ons or upgrading or reducing churn, the actual media channels, how do you think about like your own inventory using the interface or other forms of media that you control, your partners, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, or external entities? How do you think about the actual media mix itself? About any thoughts you have about what sort of is most effective in driving the goals you have?
Yeah, I mean, I won't get into the nitty gritty of it. We have, pretty robust and sophisticated media mix modeling that we do as far as our paid media goes. We are now, now that we are majority owned by Disney, we have the pleasure of, getting more access and exposure to, inventory across some of our sister properties and our sister brands, which is hugely influential. And so being able to build that into our media mix model as well lets us just get smarter with what we do for our paid channels, and making sure that we're coordinating what we do on that front with what we do in terms of the synergy opportunities. And then in terms of in-house, what we do at Hulu, that's really where sort of the subscriber lifecycle comes into it, where we're obviously much more focused on engagement and retention, and using, whether it's email push or our on-channel marketing campaign capabilities to make sure that we are creating those behaviors and those habits that create a healthy subscriber at the end of the day.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, I know we're going to be taking questions momentarily, but I guess it's a good reminder to anyone to post them, and we'll get to them in just a moment. But yeah, with the I guess the post Disney integration, I mean, does that reinforce? Are you more likely to work with Disney inventory then, I guess, rather than non-Disney inventory? Does that matter?
It honestly hasn't changed that at all. Other than, like I was saying, it has opened opportunities for creative, synergies and points of connection to be made across the businesses. So it's not changing our channel strategy by any means, but it is augmenting it with opportunities that didn't fully exist before.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, just taking a look at some of these. I mean, when we talk about the data that you have to use, one question here is, how are the changes with Apple IDFA iOS 14 impacting your data approach for your UA strategies, as well as your own ad monetization of your AVOD services? I don't think we're talking about your ad sales necessarily here, right? But I mean, that's a really interesting point. You're facing a challenge that every marketer is facing. Do you throw, I mean, it's the question I was going to touch on earlier. Do you need to throw out all of your old data sets? I mean, or can you work with old data in a world where you're just not going to have the same depth going forward? What are your thoughts about that?
I feel like someone from my team planted this question. It's very specific. So to me, it's not just there's kind of two pieces to it. There's, can we leverage old data sets, but also can we leverage parallel data sets, right? Because I think the specific use case is specific to subscribers who sign up through Apple. Which is certainly a meaningful chunk of our subscriber base, but not all of it. So really, thinking about how can we extrapolate the data that we have and understand from our broader subscriber base, and then whether it's through a lookalike approach or just transferring strategies or best practices to that chunk of our base that is on the Apple platform. I think that I have to imagine that's a challenge that a ton of marketers, but even more so ad sales businesses are experiencing with the Apple changes. But fortunately for us, fortunately or unfortunately, we do have a pretty diversified source, I guess, partner source and sign up source across our subscriber base. So it's really only impacting a portion of it.
Oh, well, I guess I could see that. Yeah. And I don't know if you have current stats. I recall hearing not that long ago that the vast majority of your consumption exists on connected TV sets. So it's not like you're dependent on digital devices. But that's interesting if, from a marketing channel perspective, you're not that reliant on online data in terms of beyond that which you can't get from partners. And I guess you would get, someone signs up online, probably get a lot of data from that process too, right? Yep,
for sure. We do get a ton of signups directly through Hulu.com. So through our mobile web sign experience and the data that comes with it.
Next question: how do you approach emerging media channels, and how do they factor into your overall strategy?
So we're all about testing, and specifically, we always tend to try to test for incrementality, because we're sort of at the stage of evolution in our business where we have a pretty robust media budget. It's pretty.
You're saying you don't want to pay a vendor for a customer you were already going to get? What?
We don't. I know. So we tend to love the channels, and we actually love the emerging channels where there's an opportunity to A/B test, through a holdout group and actually understand what the incremental lift is. And as long as we can prove out that incrementality and prove it out in a way that proves to be efficient, that's something we'll continue to ramp up over time.
I wonder, do you feel like you have an advantage over I mean, it would be unique to you among, say, vMVPDs or SBOT services, but versus say traditional, I don't know, entertainment properties. It's so few marketers are in a position where they're able to risk sacrificing a market where they can do proper A/B testing. Do you feel like you have an advantage because you can actually do A/B testing?
I think we do. I actually think that's one of our greatest advantages is we really do have a fully closed loop system.
Yeah.
If you think about sort of the traditional entertainment model, they're really built to drive awareness and drive tune-in.
Right.
But oftentimes you can't really track that tune-in, whereas we are, built to drive signups. And then we can also, not only tie it directly to the signup, but then tie it to what's the piece of content that that person is engaging with after sign up. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that we do have an advantage where we can afford to do that because we know exactly what the direct impact is.
Yeah. The question, working from home and distancing have altered consumer media and digital habits in many ways. What are you seeing when it comes to those behaviors? And how are they adapting? And I'll add on to that. Have you seen response rates, tactics, churn? Have you seen metrics change in different surprising ways through the pandemic?
Yeah, I will. I always joke that the silver lining of COVID-19 is that the streaming business is booming. As you can imagine, we're all, I couldn't dream up probably a better scenario to drive growth for Hulu than trapping people in their homes without a lot to do. So, we're all consuming more content than ever. And, so we've been the beneficiary of some really strong tailwinds, both in terms of signups, but then also engagement and across all of those life cycle metrics like we talked about, which then translates into strong retention for us. So it's been positive. A lot of our efforts have been focused around, okay, how do we take these short-term tailwinds and turn them into sustainable business benefit? And ongoing established habits that aren't just going to sort of snap back once things normalize or go back to an environment where there are a lot more things competing for your attention and your time. I would say also that one sort of nuance in the growth that we've seen is we've also seen really strong growth of our live business, which our virtual MVPD business, which I think probably speaks to some of the effects of the recession. When things like that happen, you tend to see people shifting away from the more expensive, cable operators and finding the cheaper substitutes and alternatives out there, of which we are a very good one.
Do you see, well, on that topic, so I've just calculated the new Nielsen data you may have seen yesterday, total industry-wide MVPD subs, including vMVPDs, down only 1.2%. I was debating this with my colleagues earlier in the pandemic where they're saying, oh my God, cord cutting is going to massively accelerate. I was saying, I don't know, data bundles are going to make it stickier. And that's kind of what's happened at an industry level. The vMVPDs collectively have continued to grow at a pretty healthy clip. What we know, we obviously know Hulu's numbers. We know, I guess, some of AT&T's numbers. We don't know YouTube's numbers. I'm curious, to what degree do you think that, as this plays out, that you'll be able to take share from other vMVPDs more than growth or share from the MVPDs? Do you think that one is more likely a target than the other for growth going forward?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I do think it's mostly the traditional MVPDs, primarily because we're pretty confident we're the largest, at least one of the largest virtual MVPDs out there. And so there's not much more to be had in terms of that piece of the pie. I think one of the things like we as Hulu and we as a marketing organization at Hulu are constantly focused on is how do we make it even more clear that our Hulu Plus Live TV, it's not just a DMVPD, but that it actually includes the entire Hulu SVOD library for free, because that is probably one of our strongest value propositions and biggest differentiators versus the others that are out there. So I have to believe that most of the growth is going to come from traditional MVPD. And then it's just about, sort of competing against some of the other options that are out there for why getting it through Hulu and why getting this sort of best of both worlds product from Hulu is really the optimal way to do it.
Makes sense. So another question here. Can you give us an idea of how you shifted, if you did, your media channels or media plan over the last 2 months? So I guess slightly different than before where we're talking about your general media thinking, but any recent changes that you've been making?
Yeah, again, this is not my my area of expertise, but I can say at the highest level, it's probably no different than what anybody else experienced at the beginning of COVID. Obviously, things like out of home, made a little bit less sense than they typically do when you think about our channel mix. But for the most part, it hasn't shifted drastically one way or another. And now as we start to see markets, reopening up and renormalizing a little bit, it's going back to, sort of the optimal media mix across the spectrum.
Right. Just a reminder, if any other questions, I guess we've got a few more minutes. One more question I have as I'm thinking about it. So you take like an HBO as an upgrade, but they're also kind of a frenemy too, aren't they? I mean, how do you think about the entities out there that could be value-added services, but they're also launching their own products that they would really like, consumers to sign up for? And maybe for some people, it's a choice of one or the other. It's not all incremental. How do you think about that, those trade-offs?
Yeah, you say frenemy, I say partner. But we, when you think about HBO Max, for example, they're going to be out there in the market. They already have a really established brand, or at least, the HBO part of the brand is really established with a strong subscriber base. They're putting a ton of money out there with, sort of rebranding that and redefining that as the Max portion of it. So they're going to be out there and they're going to be, creating great content, bringing in a ton of subscribers no matter what we do. And so we see it as it's a real value add to Hulu if you can get that excellent premium content through Hulu. So thinking about it as, make us your first stop, and by having more titles within our service, whether it's through your HBO add-on, branded as HBO or not, we sort of get the halo effect of that by kind of by association, in terms of engagement. The more hours you spend within Hulu, the more hours you're going to spend within Hulu. So there's a little bit of a virtuous cycle where, for the content that really matters, we'd rather have as much of it as possible under our roof. So yes, in a sense, we are helping to grow the business of a competitor, but they are also growing the value that we provide to our subscriber base by being a part of our platform and our experience.
Yeah, no, and as a consumer, certainly I'd have to say, it's safe to say, as long as any entity invest in good premium content that I want, I would probably pay for it. We do have another question here. This is a very broad one. How do you ensure team members feel engaged and inspired in a remote working world?
Oh gosh,
how many people work for you?
Yeah, so our team is about 20 people. So it's small enough that we feel a good connection, but it's big enough that we really miss the hallway conversations and just sort of the friendly banter and the vibe that you used to get in the office. Honestly, I haven't cracked the code on that one yet. When this all started, Hulu has always been a very, sort of meeting heavy culture, which I think is, one of the pros and cons of being a very collaborative place. And when this all started, I was like, oh great, we're going to have fewer meetings and everyone's going to learn how to write emails better. But in fact, exactly the opposite happened because we were missing those hallway conversations. Because everyone was so, deliberate about making sure you're over communicating and getting alignment and getting on the same page. So we do have a lot of meetings. I personally try to make a point of making sure they're not just, get down to business, talk about a specific topic meeting, but also creating that bandwidth spaces for the more informal and casual and quite frankly fun interactions that I think we're all missing so much. So that's what I try to do. It's not quite the same when it's through a virtual screen, but it's at least sort of giving us the platform to laugh together and make the sort of friendly connections that have always made our day-to-day as fun as they are.
Great. Well, one final question for me. I already mentioned one of my favorite recent shows that's on Hulu, Rami. What's your favorite original on Hulu?
I'm gonna say Little Fires Everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look for it then.
Yeah. Right.
And Lauren, looks like you're back.
I'm back, Brian. Yeah, thank you so much to you and Val for being here today.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks very much for having us. Thanks, Val. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks. Great talking to you.
Great to talk.
Thank you, guys. Brian, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yep. See you all later.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, special thanks to Val and Brian. And now for our next and final session, we are thrilled to invite Junior Reyes to the stage. Junior is the head of marketing, YouTube, TV, and programmatic new channels at Resident. That is a mouthful of a title. That's awesome. Can't wait to hear more about Junior in this session. It's going to be moderated by our friend Hamid Koyum. He is the head of digital solutions at Sturista, which is a pretty cool company. So we're excited to have these guys here today. Welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah.
How you doing? Thank you, Lauren.
Hey, Junior. Junior, you're a busy man. We just booked you. You just you're speaking with us in a couple weeks again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. I like you guys a lot.
Yeah, we love having you in the community. Thanks for joining. And Hamid, do you have your camera on?
I thought I did. Let's try again. How about now?
There you are.
All right. All
It's
right.
good to see your face.
Yeah, we had to substitute because I'm down in Florida. I couldn't find a fireplace anywhere, so I went with the beach. So I hope you guys don't mind. So.
Love it. Love it. Well, I'll let you guys chat and I'll pop back in towards the end.
All right. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So, Junior, thank you very much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about Resident Home. I know you guys changed names recently, right? We used to know you as another brand before.
Yes. So again, my name is Junior Reyes, and I handle a handful of different channels here at Resident, formerly Nectar Sleep. So a little bit about the company. We rebranded to Resident Home about a year and a half ago now, due to the fact that we were growing very rapidly across different brands that offer different products or different areas of the home. So initially, it was Nectar Sleep, which is our core brand. And we saw tremendous success with that brand and scaling it up. So we decided to replicate the same strategy across different mattress brands. And now we carried about 4 different mattress brands, one of them being Dream Cloud, Awara Sleep, and Level Sleep, as well as other home brands such as 1771, which soon will go through another rebranding, Bundle Living, as well as Clover Lane and Wovenly, which carry other products for the home. But yeah, excited to be here and have a great conversation with you.
Great, great. So now that you guys have all these different brands, how do you look at your media strategy, and how do you mix all the media with the different types of branding? Is there a strategy you guys have chosen to say certain brands go certain places, or how do you guys analyze that and choose your media?
Yeah, so the strategy has been simple. It's just to focus on the core brands and then replicate the success of that core brand across the other brands and see how performance is affected. And then if it's good, essentially continue to scale up, so essentially rinse and repeat. So our core brands are Nectar Sleep and Dream Cloud. And then what I would call essentially our startup or more startup-y brands would be Awara and the rest of the other brands that I mentioned. So if we find something that works well on Nectar, we'll figure out how to adapt it accordingly for that other brand and run it through our experiment funnel. So that would be we'll run that experiment for a set number of days and have certain checkpoints within those days during that experiment so that we can then determine if the test was successful. If it is successful, essentially it becomes an always on. If it's a marketing channel, it'll be an always on marketing channel. If it's a sub test on their particular marketing channel, it'll become an always on test or an always on experiment in that particular marketing channel for that particular brand.
So what are some of the upcoming trends that you see in media? What areas are you guys looking at? Hear a lot about connected TV and esports and things like that. So what are you guys looking at from a media perspective that's new these days?
Yeah, so I would say connected TV. So we are very big on diversifying our marketing mix across all of our brands, and particularly our core brands, as we want to make sure that we are not too dependent on just one marketing channel. Like, for example, there are brands out there that heavily rely on just paid search and Facebook or paid social in general. But when something in the market happens that could potentially affect any one of those marketing channels, those brands see the impact of that marketing channel in their performance. So for us, is really trying to find out what are the new channels that we can expand and find our audiences. By default, everybody needs to sleep, right? And everybody that can benefit from a great mattress is our customer. So for us is where do we find that? And usually is in most marketing channels, just that we need to figure out what marketing channel works at the right budget. So one that we've been eyeing for a while and kind of dabbling there and doing small tests where there's connected TV. Last year we did a small test on connected TV with Hulu, where we spent X amount of dollars for about 2 to 3 weeks and understood that our audience is there. We saw some small engagement there with our ads, based on Hulu's numbers and whatnot. But one thing that we pride ourselves is in having multiple checkpoints for any given marketing channel so that we are not relying just on that marketing channel's number. So after seeing that we had some initial success with Hulu, we said, okay, well, we need to really figure out how to crack this channel. So we started doing some research and development on understanding who out there has the best measurement capabilities for this, right? Hulu has an attribution model offering that they provide their customers when they reach a certain threshold of spend. And that is great because it allows us to give them data for them to run an incrementality test and let us know. That's a great tool to have, right? It gives us an insight into how valuable Hulu inventory is to our business. But for us, that is not sufficient. So for us, we want to also run our internal analysis and incrementality tests, et cetera, with our data because we know our customers the best. So we partner with a different company called MadHive, who has built their DSP from the ground up to focus on connected TV and OTT. And what I love about these guys is that they're fully transparent with us and all the data points that they can provide to us and allows us to take the data in-house and run our own analysis across our internal device graph and our internal attribution models that we set forth. So now we are very excited essentially to expand into connected TV after running some tests across different platforms, not just Hulu, talking about the Trade Desk, Display and Video 360, et cetera. And that is one of the channels that we're looking to scale up. An additional channel that we're kind of bringing back that is not necessarily new, but has changed over time is TV and linear TV for that matter. And that we want to look at TV more digitally, considering the fact that a lot has changed in the ecosystem of TV, right? Now you have all these different smart TV providers out there that are leveraging their data to make linear TV more addressable and more targetable so that you can actually measure their success without having to do too much of a probabilistic approach to TV, although a sample set of it, but it's still something better than that.
Right. Yeah, speaking of data, I mean, it's not TV, but all the stuff that's going on with a cookieless world and the IDFA going away from Apple, how does that impact? I know you guys have other channels outside of TV and CTV, so how's that impacting what you guys are looking at doing?
I would say that, and this is something that I heard kind of the previous presenter from Hulu, Val, talked about. For us, our income and traffic to our site is pretty diverse and doesn't necessarily, come all from just Apple devices or Apple related devices. So on that front, we're good. But from a marketing mix perspective and understanding the performance of our marketing channels, on that front, I don't think it's going to impact us too much. It's simply for the fact that we've started building our own device graph internally that allows us to look at users coming into our website at the email level, as long as they provided consent and given us their email. And then for users that we are essentially not able to get their email, we are essentially modeling those users and using partners such as LiveRamp to essentially connect the dots. By using a partner like LiveRamp, it allows us to essentially not rely on a cookie. Instead, it allows us to rely on their IDL, which is a universal ID that is widely known in the industry and that a lot of other big companies are using because of the trust that they have in LiveRamp and their capability of handling sensitive data. So for us, that is something that we are a little concerned about, but we're more concerned about how the platforms are going to handle the shift versus how we are going to handle attribution. And what I mean by that is, how is Facebook, for example, going to handle that shift if users are no longer consenting? How is Google going to handle that shift, et cetera? And for that, we have a very close relationship with our Google and Facebook reps. So luckily for us, we're able to kind of sit in at the front line of how they are starting to think about some of these conversations. So honestly, I don't feel too worried for our marketing mix, but I think that other brands out there should start looking at an alternative of how they are going to start connecting all of their consumer interactions and behavior across their different environment when it comes to Google and Apple moving to a cookieless world.
Yeah, so that leads to another question. You talked about Facebook and stuff. Now politics is getting involved in media channels, right? Mm-hmm. TikTok and Facebook boycott and all that stuff. What do you guys look at from that perspective? I know it's hard to tell what's going to happen in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, but how do you guys look at your media mix and evaluate all these things?
Yeah, so I think from a political standpoint, it's interesting because now a lot of marketing channels are starting to become more political. I mean, Twitter was the first one that became very political with the involvement of, the president of the United States constantly tweeted on it and then other parties in between. So from a marketing standpoint, it's just not putting all your eggs in one basket, not relying on one single channel to drive your business forward. And that's why I think, and I believe that we're very prideful in that we have a very healthy marketing mix. We believe that our customers everywhere, right? We run from paid social to podcast to direct mail to TV to CTV, and pretty much everything in between, even USPS, direct mail, and other programs in between, because we want to make sure that when a particular channel is affected by some out of the norm factor like a political election or a pandemic, that we're not hit too hard. And for us, again, we are in a very unique position that our consumer or our customer is someone that needs to have a good night's sleep. And the product that we provide at the core of our company, which is a mattress, is suited for every single one of those customers that we can find in any one of these given channels. So for us is figuring out how to alter the message so that we're not caught up in the middle of the politics or the pandemic, et cetera. Because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is to provide a product that provides the best value and the best sleep for that customer, regardless of the platform. So one thing is, again, diversifying your marketing mix to make sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket and relying solely on one marketing channel. And the other thing is altering your message to make sure that you're cautious of the language that you're using, considering some of these platforms in the backlog that some of this platform might be experiencing, whether that is political or that is related to a pandemic.
So again, speaking of the pandemic, how has that changed things for you, and what nuggets are you going to take out of this? I think one day this thing's going to end, right? We're going to be back to normalcy, as they say. Yeah, so God willing. So what nuggets have you gleaned out of the past 3-4 months that'll guide what you guys do in the future?
Of course. So with the pandemic, I would say that it has kind of been a blessing in disguise for our business. And I think it's primarily because of the fact that more people obviously are at home and working from home. So they're starting to realize that a lot of their day-to-day essential products or pieces of furniture that are in the house that they typically don't think too much about, right? They have a routine. They get up in the morning, they get ready for work, they go on their commute, they go to work, they go on their commute to come back home, and they do everything in between, right? They don't really think about these products and how these products affect their body, their mind, and their well-being, etc. And I feel like as people are spending more time at home, they're realizing that their bedroom has one of the main products that they should be focusing on and improving. So for our business, it was actually a blessing in that we have seen the highest volume of sales that we've ever seen as a company, and it's been extremely blessing for us. And we are very grateful of the customers that have chosen to go with one of our products over our competitors. So one thing that I definitely say has been a big learning is that, and something that we'll make sure to continue to focus on, is the focus on customer. Customers should be pretty much any brand's primary focus. And the reason why is because the new norm for what the new consumer is this consumer that is expecting convenience from the brands that they interact with, is expecting a great customer service, is expecting immediacy, right? They want their product now. And oftentimes there are things that are out of your control, and which leads me to the other point of learning from this pandemic, is that as a business, you want to make sure that you do not that you have redundancies in your logistics, that you do not want to rely on one single service to essentially get your product to your customer. And the example that comes to mind is in our business, right? We're an e-commerce direct to consumer. One of the biggest services that we rely on is delivery carrier, right? So like FedEx, UPS, etc. And one thing that came out of this pandemic is understanding that we need to have redundancies in place for that. Because sometimes, although we might adapt ourselves as a business to the always evolving consumer, there are other services that we rely on that might not adapt so quickly. So FedEx, for example, there's been articles out there and information out there about how they were not expecting the high volume of online sales during this pandemic, and essentially they had a shortage of trucks that they couldn't get to different warehouses and whatnot. So a lot of brands were affected by FedEx having this issue. And that is one thing that moving forward, we now know that we can adapt and ensure that we have redundancies when we cannot rely on one logistics partner. For example, we can have 3 others as an alternative. So in short, I think the learnings have been, number one, keep the customer in top mind. Let that be your focus and your North Star, because the customer will tell you their needs, will tell you their wants, will tell you all the feedback that you need for your business. And number two is ensuring that you have redundancies across the services that power your business, so that you don't have to depend on one single one, and that one single service affect your business in the long term or the short term, regardless of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I know we talked earlier, and one of the things was reviews and you know, how reviews impact business and things like that. How do you guys deal with that from a marketing perspective? I know it doesn't have to do with the media mix. Maybe it does, I don't know, but how do you guys look at that? And you know, there's always people that are never satisfied or whatever, but you know, how do you guys take the whole review model and all that stuff and take that into your marketing? How do you figure that out?
Yes, I mean, honestly, it's hard to get to every single customer, right? And future customers and potential customers. So we honestly try to do our best. From a marketing standpoint, you know, we have the channel managers. I mean, me, for example, I handle YouTube, and there's tons of potential customers or customers that are waiting for their orders that do comment on our videos. So I take it upon myself to kind of just go in there and respond to comments as I see them come in, you know, as much as I can. But we have a synergy between the marketing team and our customer service rep, where we have a communications team that goes out into the different platforms to try to answer as many reviews as possible and give the customers the answer that they're looking for, et cetera. But also we work with the marketing, the CS works with the marketing team to also alert each other, say, hey, look, you know, these are the posts that you're promoting that are driving the most reviews or comments on it, et cetera. And essentially on the marketing side, we kind of work to try to figure out how to mitigate that as much as possible and try to see if there's some correlation between, for example, on Facebook, people commenting too much on one of our promoted posts, how does that affect the performance of that post? There goes to say there's, good or bad publicity is still good publicity, but not all the time. So you have to figure out a way to mitigate this. And unfortunately, there's not one perfect answer other than you just have to do your best and ensure that the teams are communicating, right? If you have the marketing team kind of looking at the activity of the promoted posts or the channels that they're marketing, and these are channels that a customer can comment on, and then you have the CEOs also responding to these things, ensuring that they're on the same page. And it's just communication, unfortunately. There's no better way to put it other than just having good communication.
That's great. And good points there. So, getting back to communication with the world as it is and not being in the office, and Val was talking about it earlier, with not having the cooler talk, how difficult has it been, or how have you guys transitioned to this world of being, working remotely and connecting and having that communications and all that stuff?
So luckily for us, Resident was founded as a remote company first. So when we hire remote first. In the New York office, in the New York region, we did have a New York office, which unfortunately we haven't been there in the past 4 months. So we've been kind of mitigating those interactions by creating different Slack channels to ensure that everybody's communicating, but also having weekly events and weekly stand-up meetings. So we'll have our weekly CEO office hours where we'll have our CEO kind of and we have two CEOs, make themselves available so that anybody can ask any questions that they have that are coming up throughout the week, but also so that the team can cross-share knowledge in these meetings. We also have our different brands weekly meetings led by their respective GMs that allow each team that works on a particular brand to come together and cross-share how the projects that they're doing are impacting other divisions of that particular brand, et cetera. But in all, it's just, again, back to the communication. You have to find ways to communicate with your team frequently, right? And if you are hiring remote first, you have to understand that trust is the number one thing. If you hire someone remote, you have to trust that person to do their job, right? So for us, there's no worry about, oh, is this person up in the morning at 9 a.m. with their laptop on, moving their mouse around and that kind of thing, right? We look more at the results of that hire to ensure that they're being productive. So the benefit of being remote is that, you get to kind of work around your personal life to achieve the goals of, your employer, but also your personal life. So for me, there's days where I start my days at 7 a.m. and end up at 5. There's days where I might start at 10 a.m. and end up my day at 7 a.m., right? I kind of adjust those things accordingly to my personal life and the goals that I have for that given day. But in short, we've been doing a lot of internal events to try to keep engagement up, as we always have, because we've been remote first from the prior to this pandemic.
Great. So I'm going to change gears just slightly. I saw, speaking of me, I saw a commercial about like Home Depot now has furniture, right? So how do you guys see competition? A lot of mattress companies, Purple, Casper, these guys with a D2C and digital native and grew from there. How do you see your world? How do you see the mattress furniture world, and where do you see your company going?
Yeah, so as far as competitors, the two biggest ones for us would be Casper and Purple. And honestly, it's hard to almost call them competitors just because we're so different at price point to a lot of our products. Just comparing Nectar to Purple or Casper, the Nectar mattress is on average anywhere between $200 to almost $400 cheaper than any of those two put together. And then on top of that, our offering adds an additional added value to the consumer that lessens the worry of additional accessories that they need to buy for their bedroom. So it's a little hard to kind of put us side by side with them, but we do all sell one product that is common, which is the mattress. So as far as competitors go, we track their sentiment, we track our sentiment, we track how they're ranking in search, in particular generic search terms and whatnot. But what we've learned is that we can't put too much focus on competitors, because sometimes what works for them doesn't necessarily mean that it works for us. So we do the typical stuff, right? We want to protect our brand new terms and whatnot on search. We want to make sure that we are in as many marketing channels as they are to protect our share of voice and whatnot. But I think that what differentiates us between them and us is our marketing team, our people. We take pride in that. And we take pride in the people that we hire and the experts that we hire for each marketing channel and how we look at things. We have experts in our companies from diverse backgrounds, from Google, from other big companies, and also people that have been in the mattress industry for years, right? We have a massive presence in the retail space that some of these competitors of ours might not even know about, because we don't advertise it as much, right? We have partners, over 1,500 partners in the retail space that sell our products. But essentially, it's just a focus on how we can do what they're doing much better. And that ultimately boils down to the analytics and the measurement aspect of it, right? We don't focus too much on brand. We kind of let the branding aspect of our performance effort be the icing on the cake. And that is just essentially our North Star. Is every channel needs to drive performance, and every channel works at the right cost to drive performance. And as far as all the other competitors that are coming out, right? You have Home Depot, you have Amazon coming out with their own mattresses. These are companies that are seeing the opportunity in the mattress space, but it's easy to go and find a supplier and get a mattress. It's extremely hard to dial in the marketing channel to the point that you have such control of that marketing channel to adjust your spend accordingly to predict the actual cost per transaction or cost per X that you're likely to get out of it. And that's something that we feel we've perfected over the lifetime of our brands, and something that I don't feel any one of our competitor has dialed in yet, with the exception of Purple, if any one of them at all, just because I feel like Purple is also very performance driven, although they do a lot of branding. But they are one that, they've done a good job at putting in a brand image out there. And by doing it completely different than any other of the competitors, right? Their approach was, let's do this with a video first approach, right? They took and said, let's build the best relatable video out there that our consumer will remember. And they did. And they kind of took the market by surprise, got a big share of voice, etc. For us, it was different. For us, it's like, okay, we want to tackle the market by coming in with the best product at the best value. That is price point. And I feel like we've done a fantastic job at maintaining to that value of providing the customer with the best value, the best sleep for the best value. So again, the competitor question is interesting just because for us, we look at our competitor on a day-to-day more of to understand how they're doing versus how do we compare ourselves to them. But yeah.
That's great. So one of the things you talked about was your teams and how your teams are structured and everything. How do you guys go and look for that talent, right? So a lot of it has to do with the talent. Is there certain skill sets you look for, what do you look for from somebody on your team that ties into how you do your marketing and your media?
Yeah, so I think the biggest advantage to being remote is that you don't limit your talent pool to your specific geos. And I think that is the very first thing about how we go out there and look for talent versus some of our competitors that might have headquarters in New York or headquarters in the West Coast, et cetera, is that we're not limited to just the US, right? We can go anywhere in the world to find the talent that will suit the need that we have at the moment, right? So that would be the first thing, is ensuring that we can find the best remote person. And then the next thing is, do we need a generalist or do we need a specialist in a particular marketing channel or job function? And that's how we end up narrowing it down, right? I can tell you right now that all the way from our CS rep to our CEO, right? Everybody knows the market funnel. And that is one thing that we pride is like on our I guess requirements. It's like we need someone that can fully understand every step of the way, right? That is not shy to just their job function, but is open to learning and understanding other functions of the business. So in a way, we do look for a generalist that do specialize in a particular marketing channel that we're looking for or a particular job function. But we want to ensure that that person is, again, comfortable working remote and trustworthy, but also it's open to learning the full marketing funnel, the full journey that a user takes to becoming a Nectar, a DreamCloud, any one of our brands' customer. And I think that is important. And that is one thing that I feel sometimes lacks from some of our competitors as well as other industries, that right, they restrict themselves to just the traditional hiring, which is, okay, we have an office, we want someone in the office at all times, and we want someone to do the specific job function. And when you do that, I feel like you limit that person's ability to figure out how they can add additional value across other functions. You know, we've had people internally that have been promoted from being a CS to a product manager. And just simply because of the fact that we allow that person from starting in a CS role to be exposed to these other functions in the company, that we then found out, oh, wow, they're actually a product person at heart and ended up becoming a product manager. So that is why it's important to not just limit your criteria to just one job function, but figure out a way to position the messaging as someone that is also, that could potentially become a generalist that you can potentially use across different functions.
That's great. So my last question before we get to questions from the audience. You know, you said this during this last couple of months has been great for you guys with your business. You know, I talked to a lot of people that are in the retail space that have been struggling during this time. So how has technology helped you guys, right? So you guys are at the forefront of tech. So aside from Hbo Max, how has tech helped you gain that advantage over some of your competitors that are struggling?
So you mentioned the retail piece, something that I briefly want to touch on, because like I said, we do have a lot of retail partners and we have a phenomenal retail team, right? And one thing that we are doing to improve our partnership with our retail partners is assisting them through this period of time, right? Where we are creating programs for our retail partners to ensure that, you know, they're not seeing too much of an impact of this pandemic, and building tools from the ground up to essentially allow them to still get traffic from our brands into their physical store, right? There's some retail brand partners that are starting to open up. So one thing that we've done is essentially build an appointment scheduler from the ground up and connected the pipeline between us and our retail partners to essentially allow the traffic that's coming into our site and across our different brands to have the option that if they choose to, they can go into a physical store to try out the mattress by way of scheduling an appointment and whatnot. Other things that we've done is with a lot of these retail partners is kind of provide them guidance on the marketing side, right? A lot of them have had to stop doing marketing because of COVID, while others, you know, were brave enough to still maintain spending. So providing our marketing expertise, cross-sharing knowledge and whatnot, so that they don't feel like they're alone in navigating the waters of COVID. And because we're getting all these learnings for the success that we're seeing of the pandemic, it's easy for us to kind of cross-share that. But on the technology front, one thing that is helping with all of this, again, is our partnerships with companies like LiveRamp or PlaceIQ, and some of the other technology partners, or even some of the marketing channels like MadHive, that allows us to get additional data points for us to understand performance and behaviors better, right? Sometimes we use a vendor, not just for the marketing aspect of it, but also to learn from their signals that they're collecting how our consumer is behaving across the journey or across the current state of the world right now. And that's been kind of one of the ways that we've been leveraging the technology that we have access is to tie and cross-reference all the different points, right? From Google and their technology stack, we closely monitor search trend behaviors to try to understand the demand of the ecosystem. From Facebook, we monitor kind of the interest and the engagement on the platform to see how the consumer is engaging with our brands, but also with the overall category. And then tie it up with kind of viewership data from our partners from connected TV and TV to try to understand, how is the consumer behavior in that front. And then we start stitching everything together. You start getting a holistic view of the consumer and how their overall behavior is changing and fluctuating. And that helps you inform kind of your marketing on when do you want to spend more, when do you want to bring down your spend, or how you might want to adjust your messaging for a particular marketing channel or all your marketing channels for that matter. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
It does. Thank you. Opening up to questions. Anybody sending in questions? All right. I think we answered everything.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. So I think we covered everything.
Hi,
So we're going to bring
guys.
Lauren back in. Hi.
Hey.
So, yeah. Junior
Thank
took
you
care
so
of
much for
every
joining the
question.
conversation.
No problem. Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, technical
All right.
difficulties. You know
No
how it
problem.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
No problem.
no problem.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you both come back soon. I think you're both scheduled to be back again in the near future. So, yeah.
Think so. Yeah, I'll have to have a whole new batch of questions for Junior. He took care of everything. Like,
Thank you so
on.
much.
Awesome.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Yes.
Well, to the next one, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and good rest of your week.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Hamid.
Thanks.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone who tuned in today. We're so glad to have you. Please feel free to join us. We'll be back in action on Thursday with a whole slate of programming on content and creative. Wonderful speakers from CBRE, Gensler, Marriott, and then have a great Labor Day weekend. And we'll be back next week with some fantastic sessions featuring Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all sorts of other brands. So we hope that you'll join us. Have a great night.